Good morning, dear colleagues. I'm here today to raise an important ethical issue, which is the case of the Empresas La Polar and credit cards. First, I will present the key relevant facts of the case. Secondly, I will identify what are the violations made of the CFA Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct that occurred in this case. Finally, I will make some recommendations to avoid these violations from happening again. So now let's go through the key relevant facts. First of all, what is La Polar Company? Actually, it is a Chilean retailer that was taken public in 2003 by a private equity firm. Since this IPO, La Polar became quickly the darling of the investment community. But why is that? La Polar had interesting features. For example, it had a strategy that was focused on the middle and to lower end retailer market. So poor people were really the targeted consumers. Moreover, it had a lack of controlling shareholder. And lastly, the financial services businesses were growing fast. And with all this success, La Polar became the fourth largest department store in Chile with 43 stores and 12.4% of the retail market. We have to know that the Chilean retail industry is one of the most competitive in South America. Consequently, many retailers have established consumer lending businesses to offset the low margins that they earn by boosting the sales and profits. That is why La Polar offered La Tarjeta La Polar to shoppers. La Tarjeta La Polar is a store credit card that can be used by the consumers to pay for all of their purchases, such as, for example, electronics or clothing or home furnishings, etc. And the main argument of sales was the fact that the solvency of the subscriber was not verified. And that's how the Tarjeta became a substantial contributor to La Polar's EBITDA and also a key driver of its growth. But trouble came up. Because of the 2008 global financial crisis, the Chile's retail sector was deeply affected and the effects were even exacerbated in early 2010 by a major earthquake. Even though many retailers were reporting declining revenues, increasing credit card delinquencies, higher loan loss provisions, and net losses in quarterly earnings, La Polar seemed not as much affected as its peer. But how did that come? That's because the company was cooking its books. But how? It's very simple. Despite rising credit delinquencies, La Polar began to refinance customers' delinquent credit card debt without their knowledge or even without their approval. Then they will charge these customers with a fee and will roll this fee and any delinquent payment into a new principal balance and then assigning larger minimum monthly payments to cover the higher principal balance. This stratagem enabled La Polar to report higher fee income and lower write-offs, delinquencies, and loan loss provisions. As a consequence, the size of its credit card portfolio increased. But this scheme began to unravel in July of 2010 when the first complaints from customers about the credit management program of La Polar were raised. By May of 2011, the number of customer complaints had grown to such a level that a group of shareholders filed a complaint with Chilean regulators to investigate the company's credit card portfolio. In June 2011, the company announced that practices for managing its credit portfolio have come to light that have not been authorized by the board and that are contrary to the company's parameters and standards. This announcement had, of course, significant impact. First, the loan loss reserves were estimated to increase by $884 million, which is huge, It is approximately 15 times what is earned in a year. Moreover, the stock price declined by more than 80% of its value. Also, the bond yield increased tremendously, and last but not least, because of the fact that lots of pension plans were among the larger investors in La Polar, the stock price decline had a direct impact on the pension savings of many Chileans. All of this has created a fear to go bankrupt. So La Polar shareholders approved a share issuance plan that raised $200 million that will be used to finance the short-term working capital obligations and keep the company operating. In total, more than 400,000 customers were affected by the refinancing of more than $1 billion of delinquent credit bills. Now, La Polar has to reimburse all its debtors and is committed to reevaluate the debts of its clients. Also, La Polar executives have been charged with providing false financial information and have been fired. So now that you are all aware of the key facts of the case, let's go through the different violations of the CFA Code of Ethics that happened in this case. So first, the CFA Code of Ethics states that CFA members and candidates must act with integrity, competence, diligence, respect, and in an ethical manner with every participant of the global capital markets. So here it's clear that in that case, La Polar did not act in an ethical manner. Indeed, La Polar clearly broke the law, and cheated on its customers and shareholders. La Polar lied to and deceived its customers, its shareholders, and also the stock exchange market in general. So it's crystal clear that this behavior is not ethical at all. Furthermore, it is written in the code that CFA members and candidates must place the integrity of the investment profession and the interests of clients above their own personal interest. So here again, it's very clear that La Polar did not act in its clients' interest. They have cheated on them by increasing their debts with the refinancing of their credit contracts and without consulting or telling them. Moreover, the fact that they shared false financial statements. A lot of pension funds were investing in the company, so once the scandal was discovered and that the share price fell, millions of Chileans have lost their pension savings. So that's very clear that they do not act with integrity and not in the interest of their clients. And so to continue, the Code of Ethics says that the CFA member and candidate must practice and encourage others to practice in a professional and ethical manner. They also must promote integrity and uphold capital market rules and regulations. In this case, there was no one to stand up against the fraud that was happening within the company. And no one reacted even if the fraud was taking place for almost 5 years and if it involved employees at all levels of the company. No one thus practiced or encouraged others to practice in a professional and ethical manner. Moreover, La Polar was violating rules and regulations by making unfair clauses in the contracts and did not respect the consumer's rights to be informed of changes in contract. So it seems evident that in this case, La Polar company was absolutely not acting in an ethical way. It's objective and obviously certain that it was not acting in the client's best interest. But now let's go through the different standards of professional conduct stated by the CFA Code, and we will go more in details about what happened in Chile. First, I could make a link with the standard one, which is professionalism. The first point of that standard is about the knowledge of the law and says that the CFA members and candidates must comply with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations and do not have to knowingly assist in a violation, otherwise they have to dissociate from the activity. So here, in our case, it exists the SERNAC, which is the Chilean National Consumer Service, that is in charge for avoiding unfair clauses in contracts. So actually it should have prevented what happened with the credit contracts. But La Polar broke the law by cheating on its clients and shareholders. They refinanced the credits with higher interest rates and higher repayments to make. Moreover, the employees must have been aware of this fraud at all levels of the company, and no one was there to blow the whistle. So implicitly, everyone that was aware and did nothing is passively accomplice of the crime. Another point of the standard is concerning about misrepresentation, and it states that the members and candidates must not knowingly make any misrepresentations relating to investment analysis, recommendations, actions, or other professional activities. So in this case, each time that the company La Polar has renegotiated the unpaid customer's credit into a new higher credit contract with higher interest rates and bigger monthly payments without telling them or consulting the customer, it is a clear example of misrepresentation. They acted behind the back of the clients without telling them, so that they could improve their financial statements, whereas they increased tremendously the debt of those clients that were already unable to pay the first credit. They have lied to the customers, to the shareholders, to the stock exchange market, and to everyone. The information they gave in its financial statements was wrong and misleading. They said they were in perfect financial health, whereas they were supposed to book losses every year. So they fooled everybody, and it is a clear case of violation of misrepresentation. They wanted to mislead the people. To continue, there is a point about misconduct that says that members and candidates must not engage in any professional conduct involving dishonesty, fraud, or deceit, commit any fact that reflects adversely on their professional reputation, integrity, or competence. So in this case again, there are clear examples of dishonesty, fraud, and facts that reflect adversely the reputation and integrity of the firm. Indeed, by targeting poor, non-sophisticated people with the credit cards and then changing the terms of the contract without telling them with unfair clauses and with unbearable new conditions, it is completely fraudulent and dishonest. Moreover, La Polar has sent credit cards to people that were not asking for it and without any additional explanations on how it works and without a contract and without conditions. Moreover, lying about its financial statement is completely deceiving for all the participants of the capital market. So now we'll move on to another standard, which is the standard 3, duties to clients. And the first part of it concerns loyalty, prudence, and care. And what does it say? It says that members and candidates have a duty of loyalty to their clients and must act with reasonable care and exercise prudent judgment. They must also act for benefit of the client and place their interests before their own interests. So again, by targeting poor and unsophisticated people with credit cards, La Polar did not act with reasonable care, nor exercise prudent judgment towards those people. Because they are more likely to be unable to repay the debt and are more likely to not fully understand the consequences of entering into a credit card, it is obviously totally not prudent. Also, by offering those credit cards to insolvent clients, the company only thought about its own interest, namely boosting the sales and the performance of the firm. Also, the fact that La Polar has cooked its book It is not in the client's interest because it offers false and fraudulent information to the shareholders, investors, and the capital market in general. Another point is that the standard states when communicating investment performance information, members and candidates must make reasonable efforts to ensure it is fair, accurate, and complete. The financial statements of La Polar do not fairly, accurately, and completely communicate the performance of the company. Indeed, La Polar has deceived its clients, shareholders, and other participants of the capital market on purpose. Furthermore, there is also the preservation of confidentiality that has been violated. Indeed, members and candidates must keep information about current, former, and prospective clients confidential. But in this case, I cannot say that the standard has been directly violated. However, it certainly says that the company does not really care about it. Why do I say that? Because La Polar bought fraudulently customers' data from public institutions in order to enlarge its clientele. So it says a lot about what La Polar is ready to do. A last standard I wish to present because of violation is the standard number 4, duties to employers. There is a part concerning loyalty that states that members and candidates must act for the benefit of their employer and not deprive their employer of the advantage of their skills and abilities. In this case, all the employees were loyal to the top management of the firm because they were employees aware of what was happening at all levels of the company, and no one was there to blow the whistle. But is it really loyalty, or is it just fear? Maybe this fraud was beneficial on the short term for La Polar, but on the long term it was certainly not. So not saying anything from the employees was not in the best interest of the company, because La Polar continued the fraud until it was discovered. And at the moment when the fraud was discovered, it was too late and the consequences were very harmful. So those were the principal standards that, in my opinion, were violated in this case. I will now expose some recommendations that could potentially prevent this kind of facts from happening again. First of all, the main important thing to improve is the Chilean National Consumer Service and make it more efficient. So clearly, in Chile, regulation authorities must be more present to make the companies respect laws and regulations. Obviously, there is a lack of involvement of the control and regulation authorities. Moreover, I would recommend that La Polar should adopt a code of ethics which every employee of the firm must adhere and should put in place written procedures for reporting suspected violations and encourage the reporting of violations. If there were clear procedures about reporting violations, maybe, I don't know, but maybe one of the employees would have blew the whistle instead of not saying anything during 5 years. Also, I think it could be wise to invest in a kind of compliance officers that keeps its independence and whose task would be to investigate potential misleading practices and potential fraud within the company. Another important point would also to make sure that there are concrete and understandable values, norms, and principles among a company. It is known that when values and norms are clearly communicated, not only do employees feel responsible for upholding them, but there is also a greater likelihood that when they observe wrongdoing, they will do something about it. To continue, I think that giving concrete examples and discussing ethical issues with employees is a good way to make them sensitive about the subject and make them better understand what is wrong or not. Finally, Showing that there are sanctions associated with violations and unethical behavior would be a good way from preventing this kind of behavior. Of course, all those solutions need to be promoted by the employer. Now, the last part of this presentation is about any additional recommendation I would make that is not stated into or covered by the CFA Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. Actually, I think it would be interesting to have another standard called duties to employees. I can see that there are already a standard about the duty to clients and another one that is the duty to employers. But why there is not a standard about the duty to employees? That's my question. I think that the employers are the first ones that have to show the good example. They are the first ones that have to act in an ethical manner. This standard should prevent the situation of La Polar. It should prevent the situation where an employer puts his employee into a delicate situation where he has to denounce its superior, which is not easy at all. That is why, in my opinion, the employers are the first person concerned with ethical behavior and showing the example. So I'm already at the end of this presentation. But to conclude, I would like to say that everyone is concerned with ethics. It is not only employees' business or employers' business. I think that everyone should have it in mind and try to treat the others as they would like to be treated themselves. So, dear colleagues, that was it. Thank you for your attention and bye-bye.